Now, the name that came to mind for you, Corey, because we talked the other day about Damian Lillard and how, as intriguing as he is, unlikely to get traded. Now, somebody who I do think could get traded is CJ McCollum. What would y'all think about that fit? Putting aside, and then we'll get to the idea of, do you have the ammunition to make it happen?
He was, Mike, am I wrong? Did he fail being Lillard's running buddy?
Fail is a strong word, but well, they've made it to a conference finals. I will say that you might want better for a championship number 2 guy. Mm-hmm. But he's a borderline all-star. It goes to how tough the West is, especially at the guard level. It's almost impossible to make the all-star team as a guard. Even Lillard, for 3 years of his career, was left off. They're like, we're sorry, we only have 5 spots, and you're not one of the 5 best guards in the West, as great as he was at times.
By the way, I think we're going to be kind of navigating this until the Mavericks make moves.
Yeah.
We're going to be kind of floating ideas and trying to go through names and figure guys out. But CJ McCollum, I love his Twitter. I love his personality off the court. He's very opinionated. There have been times when I was like, dude, this tandem is fantastic. But then, to see what their exits early in the playoffs every year, I don't know how much of it falls on him because, you hate to see the moment that the back of his foot was out of bounds.
Yeah.
Right? But that moment happened.
That was bad.
And that moment, like that let that team down. That was a big moment right there. And so I really love the player. I don't know if he fits with Luka and what they want to do, but again, we bring guys up, and the big question is: are you smaller, and I know KP doesn't play big, but are you smaller and still incapable of defending big? If they try to do it, if they put Zubac in the middle, you can't stop him. What are you going to be able to do aside from put Luka out there, so they have to take him off the court while he hunts? But then the other part is, what have you gotten good enough at distributing and doing all those other things along with it?
If you're asking what does he do, if you're asking what does McCollum do, he creates his own shot. He can dribble and he can get his shot off whenever he wants for the most part. We don't have another person on the team that can do that.
He can shoot threes better than DeRozan, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, he's a good three-point shooter. Really good. So when you look at that, what would he add to all the things that you looked at and said, well, he wouldn't add this? What he would add is he would be by far our second best player, and there would be no competition to it. And you don't have to call plays for him because you can just give him the ball and say, do it. And he can get you 35 this night. If you just say, go do it, he can. Where we don't have anybody else who can. So he's kind of a borderline all-star guy who I'd love, but we don't have the ammunition to get him.
Is he a rugged defender also?
He's okay.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing that this team lacks.
I mean, he's way better than Tim Hardaway Jr. if you're wanting to compare to who we have right now at that position.
Luka was listen, we had the chart the other day. Luka was not only your best offensive player, but best defensive player too.
Yeah, by a lot.
And people hate Luka's defense. Like a lot of people out there hate it. I don't think they're so either.
I do hate that he argues with the refs and doesn't get back on defense at times. But I think if you're just saying he's a bad defender, I think I'll go with Jeff Van Gundy. Don't let his whiteness get in the way. And I think
what an amazing line that was.
There are times where I think we can be prejudiced that way with certain aspects of the game, where you just kind of lump him into kind of the majority when you're like, hey, he's not great defensively, but if you're not paying attention, he's not bad defensively.
Now, in terms of the ability to get him, I felt a lot worse after I read this article on Sports Not, because they have 4 trade destinations, and I just want to give you the key components if you want to get an idea of how far away the Mavericks are from having the ammunition for this. Trade to the Bucks, it would take Chris Middleton, Dante DiVincenzo, and a first-round pick.
For McCollum?
Yeah. To the Raptors, Pascal Siakam and Aaron Baines. To the Pacers, Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner. And
if I am Portland, I'd do that in a heartbeat.
I would too. And to the Clippers, this one is interesting.
That's too much, by the way. Sabonis, I think, is a better overall player than McCollum. If I was ranking NBA players, I get the different positions, but I think Sabonis is a better overall player.
And then for the Clippers, they got the Clippers picking up McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic for Terrence Mann and Paul George. Now, the reason why I'm interested in that is if CJ McCollum gets traded, it goes Knicks first, Clippers second. So, man, you look at a potential seismic change in what the Clippers are doing, because I was trying to figure out how the hell are they going to get CJ McCollum, but they would be swapping out Paul George as part of that deal.
That would mean, Kawhi was like, I can't win with this guy, even though I'd force you to trade to get him.
For this specific guy.
Yeah. So go find me somebody else. But Nurkic and McCollum to that team, they're keeping Zubac too. That's an interesting team right there.
By the way, if I'm Portland, I do that. I think that it's very close between Paul George and CJ McCollum, and Terrence Mann is a really nice guy to have on your team for 24 minutes a night.
I don't think that LA would want that. Unless
I wouldn't give up that much.
Because you're giving away a really good defender for a guy that can shoot, but that's your part of your identity. This is the kind of the opposite of the Mavs, right? Giving up the guy that can shoot to get the defender, and it doesn't work out for you, then what happens? I think McCollum will work out, but Paul George is a really good player to go along with it. I guess if they just don't have a good mesh, then that's a problem, and you got to change something.
Paul George and McCollum straight up, I can understand why both sides might want to do it, especially if LA loses this series. You're like, we can't keep this same team. And Portland's already saying we can't keep this same team. So you're kind of swapping two. I know Paul George consistently makes the All-Star team, but you're trading two kind of borderline All-Stars, kind of right around that 20 to 30 mix player in the NBA for each other.
Is that good enough for Dame?
It hasn't been good enough for anybody. Paul George as the number 2 guy has not been good enough for anybody.